Hey everyone, welcome back to Reading with Tatiana. Today I'm reviewing Still Running by Vanessa Zuisei Goddard, and I gave this book a 5 out of 5. Before I go into my full review, I like to give my booktuber shout out, but except today it is a YouTuber shout out. The author of this book, Vanessa, actually has a YouTube channel that she posts regularly on, so I will post her channel down below if you want to learn more about mindfulness, meditation, or anything regarding Buddhism. As always, I'll appreciate if you can hit the subscribe button if you've read this book, to leave a comment what you think below, and if you like what you see, please give this video a thumbs up. A bit about the author Vanessa Zuisei Goddard. So how she got into Buddhism and sinfulness and mindfulness is that in college she took a backpacking trip in Europe, which I think is a classic trope of people in our youth. And she was in a hostel, and by chance there was a book about meditation in her hostel, and she really pinpointed this moment as a pivotal moment in her life, because what if it was a different book? Maybe it wouldn't have changed her. What if it was the Bible and led her to God? So she read this book, and it talked about meditation. So for 6 months she did meditation on her own in self-practice, and 6 months later she did a weekend retreat in upstate New York, where she lived, I assume, and then she went back for another weekend, and then she signed up for a month-long residency, and then she actually spent 25 years a year living at this monastery. In her early years, she was very active in sports, and also when she was living at these monasteries, she was also actively running. So this book called Still Running is really about meditation in the running aspect. So I thought that's really cool, because for me personally, I'm a big runner, and I've reached states where when I used to run for endurance all the time, I would do the same route, 15K, and because I ran the same route every day, 5 days a week after work, I would reach a sense of calm and meditation. I don't actively meditate, but when that happened to me, this is I don't know, in 2016, I can't explain it. It was almost like I was just out of body experience. So this is why I picked this book to read, and it's really cool that Vanessa puts these two disciplines together of running and meditation. Currently, she identifies as a writer, editor, and Zen teacher, and she is now based in Playa del Carmel, which is in Mexico, and she does a lot of workshops and leads workshops for people who are interested in meditation, Zen, and running. This book is published in 2020, and I would put it under the genre of self-help and spiritualism, and I feel like this book is very niche. So if you're not into meditation or mindfulness or running, it might not be the book for you. However, it is quite short and a quick read, and there's lots of things I found in it that you could take and apply to other things in your life. So I think if you're looking for a book that's kind of outside your norm, and something that you could apply to your day-to-day, I think it's worth reading. It's also Vanessa's debut novel, which is pretty exciting. This review will be a bit different than my normal reviews, where I have different segments of backstory, characters, themes, what I didn't like, what I liked, because this book I felt like, because it's a self-help book, there isn't a plot or a narrative. So I'm just going to share some things that really resonate with me in this book that maybe you enjoy, to pique your interest to read the book yourself. I'll also be sharing a lot of my experiences when I picked up running back in 2016, and my journey to running marathons as well. So one thing that I really took away from this book that Vanessa talks about a lot is the 3 things of intent, commitment, and discipline. So the analogy she uses is the intent, for example, is the map for a road trip. You have the intention to go on a road trip, and all of us, yeah, road trip would be great, I would love to go, why not, right? And then the second thing, commitment, is actually following through. So you actually have to plan it, you actually have to set time aside, maybe invite friends or family to go with you. And the third thing is discipline. So you can want to go on a road trip, and you can invite people to go on a road trip, but actually having discipline to rent a car, to make sure it's maintained well, to make sure you get gas, make sure you plan your hotels. So all these 3 simple things, intent, commitment, and discipline, you can really apply to every aspect of your life. For me, when I was training for a marathon, I had the intention to complete one. I had the commitment to train 3, 4, 5 days a week for 4 months straight, and I had the discipline to make sure I kept on track of my running, just so I could succeed. And a lot of goals in your life, you need all 3 of these, because it's so easy to have a goal, but if you don't commit to it and don't plan for it accordingly with discipline, then it will never be realized. One quote that really stuck with me from this book is the idea of success is stumbling from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm. And I think we see this a lot now in like social media and stuff about how lots of people who are successful, you never see their failures and you only see their success. And they're only successful because when they have failed, they don't give up and they keep trying. So this really stuck with me. Other analogy that really stuck with me that Vanessa shared is that we should treat our body and our consciousness like a garden. So if you have a garden and you water it every day, it has the potential to bloom. However, if you neglect it and you don't, then over time it will dry out and it will die. So when you are trying to start a new habit or try to accomplish a goal, it's so easy to not do it and just stay home and relax, right? But even if you don't want to do it, just the action of doing it or just setting time aside, over time it'll get easier and easier. This kind of reminds me of like another analogy that I heard from Terry Crews regarding to working out, how if you don't feel like working out, still go to the gym anyways, because the action of putting on clothes and making the choice to go to the gym, even if you work out for 5 minutes, or in Terry Crews' example, he said even if you go on your phone for 20 minutes, you still set time aside and had the intention to go. So over time, you have to exercise that muscle. And like I heard this other thing before where like your brain and your mind is like a muscle, right? So the more you use it, the easier it be. And the more you don't use it, the easier it be to not use it. So this is a lesson that I've learned in other aspects that Vanessa also reinstilled in this book. I don't want to spoil too much of the book because I literally wrote down notes for like every chapter. But one thing that I really like that Vanessa mentioned is, when she was younger, she thought she would get married and have babies. But then when she became interested in Buddhism, she wanted to be a monk. And with that choice, she would forgo the idea of marriage and babies. And she said it's really important because in our lives, there are so many choices nowadays. We're so lucky, we're so privileged to have so many options. And you can't always pick the right choice or the choice that you want. Sometimes you pick a different choice because things change or, you have no idea. But she said it's really important to, whatever choice you don't make when you hit a fork in your life, to take time to grieve that loss of choice that you didn't make. Because if you just ignore it, it may come later after this ugly monster and be like regret and like, oh, I wish I did that. But if you give yourself time when you make the choice to fork, to just grieve that loss, it will really help you in the future. Earlier, I mentioned that when I have ran for endurance training, when I ran 15K very easily, the same route 5 days a week, I reached this state of meditation. However, this book talks more about what she means by still running or meditative running. So one thing she says that it's important to pick a familiar route so you don't expend energy thinking about where to go. And she said for 15 minutes, you want to run at an easy pace. And she said it's important to focus on your breath and focus on your consciousness. So when you run, you want to run an easy pace, and also anytime a thought comes into your brain, you actually want to stop running. Don't slow down, just stop running, clear your mind, and run again. And if a thought comes in again, she wants you to stop, clear your mind, and then run again. So she said when you start practicing this type of running, it will be very cacophonous and very inefficient, but that's okay because you're not focusing on the pace or the distance. You're focusing on stilling your mind and being able to focus on your consciousness, I guess, and also your breath, which she talks about later. So I haven't experienced this before. I'm not sure if I'm so interested in that aspect of it, but I just want to share that because this book does break down the mechanics of running and just being more aware of your body and space. So she even has a chapter talking about posture and how to correct it, and having a mirror or a friend to be aware of your space while you move. If Buddhism calls to you, in this book she talks about the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. I don't want to get too much into it because I think it's something that she wrote a book about, so you should find out for yourself, or you can do a Wikipedia search as well. But she does a lot of Buddhism that she applies to running and also everyday life, which I think if that's something that speaks to you, this book is worth reading, even if you're not a runner. And another thing that she talks about in the book that I want to share is the art of breathing, because it's something that we do every day without thinking, but it's crazy because if you don't do it, you will die. So she talks about how breathing is giving you life, literally and figuratively. And if you're half breathing, you're half living. So it's so important to be aware of your breathing and just give yourself some time to come to it every now and then. There's no right or wrong way to breathe. It's more about the practice of being aware of your breaths and just, over time, just being aware of it, and if it's shallow, if it's deep, and that kind of stuff. One thing I want to refer to, if you are interested in breathing exercises, is the Iceman on YouTube has a 10-minute breathing exercise that I do periodically that's really good to clear your consciousness and focus on your breathing. So I highly recommend that. One more analogy that she gave that I really enjoyed is she said, think of your breath like a boat in the ocean. So your breath and your consciousness is the boat in the ocean. When the waves are calm, your mind's at rest. You're focused on your breathing only. However, if you're not focusing on your breathing and your consciousness is all awry, then the ocean is like a storm and then the mind is chaotic. So I really like that imagery, because when I do my breathing, I like to think about that. So now when I think about that or focus on my breathing, I'll think about me being a little boat in the middle of the ocean. Other things in the book that I enjoyed, if you're not a runner or into Buddhism, is that she does share a lot of stories of other athletes and how they have applied mindfulness to their sport. And she also talks about these monks in Tibet and Japan who run like ultra marathons or like crazy distances in the past. So I thought it was really cool to have that like aspect of history in the book sprinkled in as well. Two other things I wanted to share in the book that I really enjoyed was she thinks it's really important to focus on the present, because the past has already passed and it's dead, and the future hasn't been born yet. So all you have is the present, and that's all you can focus on. The second thing that I like is that she said that silence can be scary, but you don't need to fill the silence when it happens, because the silence has everything we need, and it's what we have. So when it's silent, don't feel the need to fill it with noise. Now I'll give the Goodreads rating. So on average, Still Running by Vanessa Zuisei Goddard got an average of 3.98 out of 5. I do think it got a high rating because it's very niche, and I think if you're interested in Buddhism, mindfulness, and running, you'll be drawn to this book. So it's kind of like a guarantee that people would like it. So some people liked it like me because they are also spiritual and have running experience, and they felt that she really puts the two together really well. And some people didn't like it because they felt it didn't resonate with them. So that's kind of it's very niche, so either you like it or you don't. So why I think you should read this book is if you're into mindfulness, Zen, Buddhism, or running, this book is for you. And even if you're not, I feel there's lots of anecdotes in this book that you can apply to your everyday life or in other aspects of your life. Now I'll share the feeling this book gave me, because as always, if you ask me a day, next week, a month, a year from now, I won't remember what the book really was about or all these anecdotes or lessons that stuck with me, but I'll also remember how a book made me feel. So one thing this book made me feel was it gave me permission to give myself more grace, because to be honest, this past year, I've kind of like fell out of love with running, just because in 2021, I think as a reaction to a pandemic, I ran quite a bit and I really burned myself out. So this book really talks about you're not running for pace or for distance, but really for yourself, and just be more in tune with your body. So this book gave me permission to give myself grace when it comes to running. All right, so that's my review for Still Running by Vanessa Zuisei Goddard, which I gave a 5 out of 5. If you read this book, I'd love to hear your comments down below. And if you want to join me next time, the book I'm starting now is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. And this book I see is really popular and has really high ratings, but it is a recent release, so I feel like ratings are skewed, and also because it's really trendy. But I'm like 2 chapters in, and it actually has me hooked. So if you want to join, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.